Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Saturday, June 27th. Going to put this video up tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Let's get right to it here.
Just shortly before we held that historic vote, he called me from the White House, and I was in my office in Rayburn, and he was telling me to take my name off the discharge petition. We were under tremendous pressure. You had
So, in a bizarre pairing, Stephen A. Smith, who is in a podcast that he's calling Straight Shooter. Stephen A. is a straight shooter, and he's being interviewed by Marjorie. He's interviewing Marjorie Trader Green.
not believe the pressure that the four of us, it was Thomas Massey, myself, Nancy Mason, Lauren Boebert, were the pressure that was put on us to take our names off the discharge petition. But he told me on that phone call that his friends would get hurt by the information that would come out. And so I can share that with you. And I think he was being honest about it. I would also suspect that there's a lot of intelligence information there, as well as very disturbing information that would be on prominent people in our society.
Do you have a reason to believe that one of those prominent people in our society that it would affect would be the president directly?
Possibly. Of course, I can't say for sure,
Right.
and I wouldn't say that, but given his behavior and how hard he's fought to stop the files, and the files still haven't been released, I think one could come to that conclusion.
Yeah, one could. Well, one might come to that conclusion. Maybe two, maybe five, maybe a million might come to that conclusion. Maybe everybody, but dumb fuck Trumpers would come to that conclusion. Like everybody that isn't just like eating MAGA shit right now would come to that conclusion. All right, so it takes them forever to get around to this stuff. Um, some, just easy thing to come up with. Okay, so the Trump deterioration tour continues.
Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent. Ladies and gentlemen, from now on, you don't have to pay any rent. From now on, anybody wants a house, don't worry about it. Just pick the house you want.
You're kind of like if you're Israeli and you're in Palestine kind of thing.
Everybody gets free food. Everything is free from this point forward. Everyone's going to vote for me. The problem
Okay. He would be the greatest communist because he's the greatest at everything. When he sets his mind to it, as soon as he becomes something, he immediately becomes the greatest person. No one knows more about communism than him. And, it's classic Trumps. Okay, so I have kind of a little bit of a health update. I'm going to get to, I don't know when, sometime in this video. I'm just kind of waking up, going through Twitter. And this happened.
Has Trump asked you to pray before?
Absolutely not. Trump is hostile to traditional Christianity, and very. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're just saying this. Another fucking piece of shit sellout. Like, this is him just admitting that he sucks. He sucks. Because how long have you known he's hostile to Christianity? Like, you're supposed to be a big Christian, and his followers are all Christian. And Trump says his favorite book is the Bible. But he wouldn't put his hand on the Bible, which is the whole thing with you and your gay brother. But, like Marjorie Trader Green, like you knew these things more than anybody else. Like I could see everything with Trump. Like I said, the guy doesn't believe in God, and and if he does, he's competing with God. Like he's I mean, whether someone believes in God or not doesn't mean shit. Like people think that they're so much better than an atheist, but really, an atheist could have a better relationship with their soul or God unintentionally than people who believe in God but are just thwarting God's will, like actively pursuing their egotistical pursuits over what their soul is telling them to do. There's lots of religious people that are not godly people. They're the opposite. And they claim to be religious. They claim to be godly people, but they use God as a weapon. They use God and the belief in God as something to secure resources and wealth and power for themselves, right? So But Trump has been this way since, I've been saying this for whatever amount of time, right? And the Democrats and people have been saying it, not about him being religion, but pretty much everything. Like everything that's been said about Trump is pretty much true. It's not a witch hunt. He doesn't being targeted. He's not a victim. And so this guy knew it. And there was rumors that he hated Trump, like Tucker Carlson. But he jumped on the MAGA bandwagon, and it was like Charlie Kirk and all this stuff. And they had this, gay MAGA party with all their, Trump love and all this stuff. And he clearly was exactly what his critics were saying he was. And then Tucker Carlson says something like this, like, the guy never asked me to pray. He doesn't like God. He doesn't like Christianity.
And I am sad about Trump is mad at Christians for opposing abortion and mentions it a lot in private, a lot. And he's very annoyed by it.
And so that wasn't a red flag for you. You didn't come out and say that like when I don't know, like that would have been a big thing to say. Like when he was being elected or when he was doing any of these things. I mean, before the election. Like, you're so scared of Kamala Harris you couldn't come out and say it. But you still were, and you're still to this day are saying there was an assassination attempt. You still talk about how brilliant he is. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, you had, I mean, if that's something that you withheld that information.
Opposition to abortion annoys him a lot. He's mentioned to me like 30 times. I vehemently oppose abortion, just to be clear, because I think it's killing a child. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but not the president, but with this fucking guy. This guy that you're electing that's going to save America loves killing children and is pissed at Christians for not loving it.
I haven't argued with him about it. I just listened.
And you kept your mouth shut. You fucking shill. You CIA piece of shit, right?
Maybe I should have, but I didn't. But he's got a really strong view on that.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that was coming. So, Jesus Christ, bro. Like, you just outed yourself as being somebody who didn't tell your audience the truth and lied to your audience and misled them to vote for this piece of shit.
I think this proves that the president isn't a slave to Israel. Do you
Apparently,
agree?
or he's broken free. He's broken his fetters.
I don't think.
He's so fucking weird. He hasn't broken his fetters. So there is something on the table where Israeli army and American army are going to become partners. The militaries are going to become partners, right? And I was thinking this morning, I woke up, I don't know why, it just popped in my head. What if you see Israeli troops on American streets going after people that they are claiming are anti-Semitic? Like, what if you see that? Like, what if that ends up happening? Like this might, look like Trump is finally, doing whatever whatever's going on with this thing. A story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Like there's, we used to talk about this with the cleaning and the Sizemore system. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, there's a resolution, like the resolution or climax of any story. It's where like there's the happily ever after in the end of the story of the movie, TV show. But in real life, it's not always happily ever after. But there is a story has an end. Like, you have these things that you live through. And the, relationship with Israel is not at its end. Like it is, there's been a change in that story, which is people are criticizing Israel and young people are waking up to its, puppeting the politicians, but Israel still has all the same amount of power. It may be even more so in terms of owning the media and owning politicians and owning various levels of corporations and having, whatever leverage. It's still there, like the leverage there. And so, it's just a matter of like, and what leverage do people have? Like what is the level of, the stuff that people have. I mean, they're going to go out and hurt some innocent Jewish people who Israel, the Zionists don't care about. Some random people on the street or some, guys with the curly hair and the, some, whatever they're called, not Hasidic, Hasidic Jews, the ones that look obviously like Jewish people. But people who are not, don't have any power, might even be against the treatment of Palestine, and random people get mad and do some hate crimes, like just because that's who they can, if they get mad at Israel, they'll whenever people get mad at a demographic or whatever it is, they'll find people who, I mean, sometimes they don't have to. It would be like Indians. They're mad at Muslims, but they take it out on Indians because they can't tell the difference, right? So like that's not going to move the bar for people like Netanyahu. He doesn't care about his own people. I mean, people like that. So like the powerful people in the country of Israel will not suffer anything from random American people. They'll have no leverage, right? Like it's just that stuff like doesn't, just because you're mad doesn't mean that makes a difference. Just because you're complaining about it. And so to say that Trump is free, well, it's not like because he stood up to him one time, and we haven't seen first of all, let's see if there's an actual deal with Iran. Like Iran's closing the Strait of Hormuz. I just saw Ben Shapiro celebrating. It's above this thing. We'll go back to we'll show that clip. And so when the deal is done with Iran and we're free from that inevitable World War IV that's coming out of this thing, and the rest of these things, and when all this stuff unfolds, then the story will be over. When America and Israel America doesn't support Israel financially or militarily, then the story's over. Otherwise, this is just all smoke and mirrors.
I support.
I don't think the president was ever a slave to Israel, and I think characterizing it as that was not fair.
He's totally a slave to Israel. It's just not fair. People are so unfair to Trump. Why are so people unfair? Who is this piece of shit, right?
I'm friends with 8 years ago I became friends with Bibi Netanyahu's son Yair.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. Fucking amazing. He's a real peach of a guy. Just amazing. He's not into the genocide at all. I mean, he's just wonderful. Like he just, he does. He still, endorses his father, and he celebrates with all the, he pushes the same bullshit. But he's a peach of a guy.
There was a moment in
Is
time.
he fighting in Lebanon right now?
I actually haven't talked to him in a while, man.
Oh, I think he's in Miami, but whatever. Okay.
I don't think he's in Miami. I invited him to my wedding. So for the people who call me anti-Semitic, I invited the prime minister.
They're calling you anti-Semitic.
They call me anti-Semitic now. So I invited the prime minister of Israel's son to my wedding because and he's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But there was a moment in time where
I know him, for the record.
The president, after the 2020 election, and didn't have a great relationship with Bibi. Bibi was the first world leader to congratulate Joe Biden.
I remember
after the rigged 2020 election, and I think that's made people feel
the rigged 2020 election. Jesus Christ,
a little bit different about that relationship. The president now has a great working relationship with him, but he's certainly not a slave to Bibi.
He's not a fucking slave. He's not a fucking slave to Bibi. Come on, he's not a slave. He's not a slave. He's not a slave for Bibi. He's not a slave to Bibi. He's not a slave. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Fucking clowns. I'm just tired of them. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Here's eyebrows and mustache.
This is part of a shift that is happening away from the interpretation of this not very good MOU in sort of J.D. Vance fashion and toward a much more Marco Rubio-like foreign policy. The idea is that we're not going to keep overlooking Iranian violence, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz. That's great. It's excellent. And the reason it's excellent is because you need the credible threat of use of force in order to get the Iranians to even abide by basic terms of agreements.
Exactly. That's it. Because, Israel's known to be so upfront and so righteous, so trustworthy. They don't ever fucking just, pretend that a rocket landed in the middle of the desert and then go destroy 12 buildings with people in it, and innocent people that have nothing to do with Hamas or Hezbollah. They don't do shit like that. They don't use Hezbollah. They don't use Hamas as a false flag creating type situation so they can go. There's a video that came out where some guy was explained some Israeli, person to ban video in Israel. That he was explaining that he was they were destroying these buildings because the Hamas thing was a way to justify the destroying of Gaza, which should be obvious, right? Like they're not like that.
And when you add what just happened in the Strait of Hormuz to the move that was made by Secretary of State Rubio at the behest of President Trump in this deal between Israel and Lebanon, you're starting to see the beginning of a good foreign policy emerge once again in the Middle East. Today, says Secretary Rubio, the governments of Israel and Lebanon made a bold decision to agree to a framework that builds a realistic path out of endless conflict. This agreement establishes a clear and structured process to restore Lebanon's sovereignty, disarm Hezbollah, and dismantle its terrorist infrastructure, and enable Israel to return to its borders once that threat to its citizens is removed. Now, again, this is great because what this means is two solid moves in favor of a Middle East that is not built around Iranian power. It is built around limiting and destroying Iran's forward terrorist capacity. So those are two huge moves.
Two huge moves. So like he's back with Trump, it says. Like he says, Trump is back. So, like how is this guy, like he's just mockable. Like he's just the worst. He's not the worst because there's whatever that woman's name is. But like he's just so unlikable. So my wife sent me this last night.
No.
So it looks like the bear wants to eat the dog. And it's an unarmed woman with a dog, and where all you can do is bluff. I'm showing this because there's a situation where you just have to maybe assert your human power and make it clear that you're the more evolved species in some way, and and that this is not right. But this bear is looking for it to eat dog. It goes on for a while. Eventually the bear backs off. But where that if this comes down to a fight, you're fucked, right? And there's things in life, just not in terms of physical fights and conflicts, where this is, you're hoping that the bully in this case does the right thing. And in people, it's bears more likely than a person is to maybe do the right thing here. All right, so that happened. I assume that's a young grizzly bear. There's one more thing I want to show you here. So I saw this the other day. Somebody was shitting on Tim Pool, and I didn't save it, but this person here is saying basically the same thing. Never thought I'd see Tucker and Joy Reid effectively on the same side. Now, as much as a piece of shit as Tucker Carlson is, and a shill and just a disinformation agent like all these fucking pricks, he's not on the same side as Joy Reid, right? Other than that, they're all on the same side. Like all the people that are basically telling you that there's hope, right? All these people who are saying that this can be turned around, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they're pushing a political solution. That there's a political solution is a worthless piece of shit because there's enough information. They're either horrible at disseminating information, right? Or they're, lying. Either they know what I'm saying is true or they are completely oblivious to reality. And either way, they're a piece of shit because, that level of disconnect, when you just go into a catatonic state, and you might have relatives and people you've tried to talk to this about that just, just detach themselves from the reality of what they're seeing around them. So you're either one or the other, right? Like the people that do that suck just as much. You're people who just, give up and quit and turn their minds off, their brains off, right? There's a great Bobcat Goldthwait comedy bit where he would say, "Oh, entertainment tonight," and then he'd pretend to take his head off and put it on his shelf next to him. "I won't be needing this," right? Where you just go unconscious to what's going on, and you can't handle the truth, so you just glitch out and shut your brain off and your critical thinking skills. Like there's no solution to the system. And the system, and then going a step farther, which I asked, why would God save this system? What is in this system that God would save? Just because people say they're Christian or they say they're, whatever religion they are, and that God is on their side and they're the chosen people. That's all bullshit. Like God is as an independent entity away from human wants and desires. God doesn't give a shit about what you want. Like, that's the one thing. Like none of those things are part of the equation. Like if you have some leverage, like you're going to hold the planet hostage, then the divine beings that are monitoring the situation have to deal with that. Like if you're going to blow up the planet rather than secede, control to God, like if you find a way for a brief period of time to have that kind of to power, then that's whatever that is, right? But that's just, like demonic shit where there's some kind of negotiation on the material plane. But on the spiritual plane, you have no, where everything manifests itself from. I mean, and time, with time you lose your power. Like if you somehow get power, ill-begotten power for some period of time, on the material plane, that doesn't translate to your spiritual self that's getting fucked over. But these remedial-minded people. Never thought I'd see Tucker and Joy Reid effectively on the same side. Wake up, dude. You are being sold endless wars and money printing, which is destroying us. The left and the right love the culture war, but vote for the same way on what matters. They're trying to say that Tucker Carlson is finally not a left and right paradigm person, and he is. Because, anybody who's saying that there's some way of reversing this, that this could be changed, is lying to you, in whatever capacity. There's only one way this thing ends, and it collapses of its own depravity. It dies a death of its own demonic, going against God's will orientation. Okay. Not that I have to talk about what pieces of shit these two twinks are. Two beta males sharing a testicle. But here they are celebrating. Well, here, just let them talk and stuff. There's the video's fucked up. Like I don't know what their problem is there. They can't even shoot a correct video. It's all glitched out here. But you can hear their voice. There's Blake.
We just got good news.
There is good. You're talking about the Tyler Robinson.
Yes.
Yes, of course. So we do have an update. Judge Graff ruled on the contempt portion of the case involving Tyler Robinson to bring the audience back up to speed. So,
okay, because the audience is fucking not way more aware of all the things here that you guys are. Because all you have is like haters.
So there was obviously an ATF report that was referenced in a defense motion. Now, the defense motion said that the bullet didn't match the gun, all right, or something to that effect. Daily Mail took it, spun it. The internet went crazy. 25, 30 million impressions later. So the prosecution came out and they said, actually, hey, whoa. That's not what the ATF report says. The ATF report says the bullet was too badly damaged to conclusively, without any question, using ballistics reporting of striations on the bullet, etc., to match it to the gun. But we have plenty of other reason to believe that the gun matches the bullet and all this other evidence.
Yeah, that would be the only one. That would be the only one, right? So the bullet was too badly damaged because it went through, his neck and stayed there? Like, what happened there? Like, so, they're celebrating, they've convicted this guy, Tyler Robinson, which, if you were Charlie Kirk's actual friend, like, unless you had if you are a criminal and you've done something wrong, then you want somebody else to be, let's say you're complicit and you're part of a conspiracy, then you would be rooting for Tyler Robinson to get a quick and speedy trial, maybe a death sentence, like just boom, 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 like it's over, and now we can all claim that he was guilty, right? And then all these other options of, a real investigation are closed out. That would be the only people who would be willing to say this guy did it, right? Because, and these guys should be people who don't trust the government. But there's all this information. As Candace Owens is talking about this, as always, I saw a video pop up. Bombshell, fucking breakthrough in the Tyler Robinson case or the Charlie Kirk thing. I didn't look at it because it's just Candace Owens bullshit. But every day this is being talked about, and I'm seeing things on Twitter. It's coming back around. And if you were Charlie Kirk's friend and, you were somebody who cared about him, you would want the guilty party to be punished, not some guy who, was an obvious patsy. I mean, you at least want to, say, all right, I want to make sure that this is the person because we want to see justice done. Like, this is how right-wing people think and the rest of it. But, they can't wait to convict this fucking patsy, right? And if the bullet doesn't match, then, what other evidence would they have that would connect that his grandfather's rifle? The whole thing was a silly story. It just, it doesn't make sense at all. And now all this information is coming out about the exploding microphone. He was holding a microphone in one hand, and then he had one on his shirt. And it seems to have exploded into his neck. That's what it looks like. And so, all these things, right? That there wasn't a bullet at all.
It's more generally, it's that it can't be provably it can't be provably linked to this specific gun, and people spun it as it is disproven. It is not possibly linked to this gun.
So the prosecution went and corrected the
And
record.
you don't say people spun it. You guys are saying you have a fucking slam dunk, and the bullet matching the gun would be a big part of that, right?
But that's not why he's being held in contempt, this particular prosecutor. Why he's being held in contempt is because then after clarifying the record, which the judge admitted and concurred that he had a reasonable rationale and expectation to clarify the record, he went on and said, we have an overwhelming case, the state does, against Tyler Robinson. That, he said, is unfairly prejudicial to the jury.
Yeah, and everything you guys did, Erica Kirk forgiving the guy, and Donald Trump saying, like, you got to fucking burn the guy at Charlie Kirk's funeral to a bunch of right-wing, in a right-wing state where Charlie Kirk, in Utah, where Charlie Kirk's, there should be some swift justice, and where they're not going to like furry-loving, transgender-loving dudes. And, this thing has been so prejudiced, and you can't say that as a prosecutor. You can't say we have an overwhelming fucking case. It's silly. And you guys have been saying it the whole time, and we see no evidence, right? Like, this is just, the twinks. Blake.
Okay, so that's the big case. It's basically a slap on the wrist. So here's actually a legal analyst from Fox News. I saw this clip as I was prepping for the show this morning. I thought he did an excellent job. I'll play it for you.
Yeah, Fox News does such a great job.
27.
How does the contempt charge against Chris Ballard, the prosecutor, how does that affect the case? Would they pull him off? Does it do anything else to the prosecution?
I think it'll have no effect whatsoever. And I think the best way to look at this whole thing is this was a win for the prosecution. Yes, they were.
Okay, so that's what they need to hear. This was a win for the prosecution. He got to tell everyone it was a slam dunk case and that the bullet was just not connected, but we have plenty more evidence. The jury is going to be prejudiced if they are in the internet by all the other stuff. And I think you only need like one person, right? I think it's got to be unanimous. And so, and I don't know why the guy's still alive. It's so much better for them if the guy's dead and they can just convict a corpse, right? They love to convict a corpse. But like that's the majority of the time the guy dies. And I don't know why he's not dead, and I don't know how much this is playing out in terms of when people talk about distractions. I don't believe that there are distractions because I believe that they don't need distractions, but whatever. Whatever way you want to look at it. But these two, celebrating this thing, like they just let it play out, right? I mean, I don't believe in the judicial system. I don't believe that there's a fair trial here. I don't believe any of this stuff. Like, it's all the show. But to them, they believe in the judicial system. They believe in the government. They believe in the Trump administration and Kash Patel and all these people. I mean, at least that's what they say publicly. But, the only reason to really be on this guy, Tyler Robinson, is if you are, if you're two twinks, you want to get on him if you want to dress. But anyways, it's just like so sad, like how stupid they are, how bad their content is. Okay, so here's the video. It has almost 13,000 views, so that's triple what they usually get, at least double. God, please give justice to Charlie Not a single word about the amount of tiny broken glass shards in the SUV by the 5 people who were riding in it, the FBI or local police. Boy, isn't that interesting. Why did Charles' mic shatter? R.I.P. Charles. Charlie. Charlie bit me. We need an explanation of the pictures from inside Charlie's SUV immediately. Throw in the towel, you're cooked. Time to start telling the truth, evil creeps. Explain the shattered road mic in the back seat. The last 2 episodes of Candace were crazy. You'll never recover from this issue, guys. And I love it. Hell has a special place for traitors. These 2 fools, no, they're 2 twinks. These 2 fools are wicked people, a disgrace to Charlie. Shame on all of you. Are you going to address the shattered glass? As long-time Charlie fan, I find it very disturbing that you've taken his videos off YouTube. Charlie would not have wanted that. Who made this decision and why? They took his videos off this channel. What exploded under the shirt? People still believe anything these clowns got to say. No, they don't, because, look at the comment section. Never fear the truth. People at TPUSK, a little advice. Don't be the throw under the bus. Don't be the one thrown under the bus. Speak now or regret it later. Dear Mikey, come clean. How did Charlie Mike break in the car? Where's Charlie's shirt? R.I.P. Charlie. The real people miss you. That boy does not deserve to go to prison. He did not shoot him. The mic was rigged, and you know it. I can't watch too much of this. Charlie is not here, and the amount of justice will bring him back. Don't think there is any justice that would be enough. Now, they were saying how the internet exploded with 20 million imprints, of talking about the case and the bullet not matching up. And they get 13,000 views, and then they get rolled and completely owned in their comment section. So they have no influence. There's no, Erica Kirk, she has whatever amount of fans that actually, I think the only people that would like Erica Kirk are the people that fake act. They act and they get sympathy and they do the kind of shit she does. Right-wing women, I think maybe the majority of them that use their, feminine wiles to cry and get sympathy and act like a victim. And then they're all nice to those people. And they think that when somebody acts like that, they should get sympathy even if it's insincere. Or people themselves who are inauthentic. And so they think what Erica Kirk is doing is just natural. Like they can't recognize inauthenticity because they don't know what authentic is, like within themselves. So I think that's what this whole thing's about, in terms of her fans. But Jesus Christ, right? How bad is it? Like, why even make content if the only people watching it are people who want to shit on you? Like, you have no fans, nobody. It's just, like, what are you doing here? You have no influence. You have anti-influence, right? Like, how bad is that? Like, what a pathetic duo. Just so, And again, the only reason they would do this, they'd be on board on this, the only logical reason is they want this guy to be buried. They want anybody who's rooting for the patsy to go down without, as quickly as possible. And again, this trial I don't think even starts till next year. Like, I think it doesn't start for a year from now. So, my God, this is just going to keep on going on until then. And Candace Owens and these people, stuff's popping up on Twitter all the time. Candace Owens still, pushing her bullshit, which has no influence, even though the majority of people are following her and believe in this other story. No, they don't believe in the official story. It's just, it shows you everything that's wrong with America because, you win in terms of the people, but you lose in terms of the laws and the government and the policies. And this is what Dave Smith was saying to Tucker Carlson. We win all the time in terms of debates and in terms of public reaction. We have more people on our side. And yet political policy and the mainstream story always, they don't get it. They don't care about your opinion. Like, you're separate from them. You have no leverage. You have no influence. And they're going to do whatever the fuck they want. And they don't care because you're not going to do anything about it. All right, so that's the 2 twinks. Okay, so I'm going to do the health update here in a second before I forget. But I just want to, and I might add some more clips at the end. But I just want to say this. It's just such a fucking clown show. Like, it just shouldn't stress anybody out or, feel like there's anything of substance or nothing in this situation matters. Like, well, let me I'm going to combine this, what I'm talking about, with my health. So one of my viewers wrote this: Paul, have you tried praying that God heal you from your affliction? God, I can do nothing under my own power, but through your will I may be healed. And I don't dislike that prayer, the way it's worded. But, in the Sajmark system, I was talking about how, you know, miracles are considered a bad thing. Like, you have to figure out whether, and I was saying this in my last video, I believe this is part of a plan, what I'm going through. So I'm not going to be angry at the people that perpetrated there's a failure on this, this holistic practice that I'm dealing with, and I just got to, I want to cut myself free from them because I don't trust them, and I just feel stressed out, and, I did this long voiceover, and I'm going to, think about it before I send it, probably this weekend or whatever, to them. But I might do another one later. I don't know if I'm going to send that. I mean, if I don't send this one, or I might do nothing, because at this point, I don't really want to go back. I don't want to deal with these people. I don't want, I don't trust them. I don't feel like they're good healthcare people. But, I can't be mad if I believe this is part of God's plan. Then I'm just, getting angry for no reason. If I get angry, I should get angry at God. But miracles, if you change a part of God's plan, then that's demonic. Like, that's a misuse of power. It's an egotistical move, and it's saying, God, I know more than you. And so the first thing to determine is whether this is something that is, and really there's nothing to determine. If it's happening, it's God's will, it's God's plan, right? And so, we can work our way out of things. Like I can work my way into stopping this thing. And I can pray in a way to say, God, I don't know if I can make it. Like, I don't know if this is debilitating. If you want me to do more work or whatever it is, then this has to be, I can't. You have to either give me the strength to endure it or whatever, or help me in some way, right, to cope with it. And so, in terms of, like, it's not being passive. There's people in the East that say everything's God's will. And people in America, people in the West say, yeah, we got to do it. Like, when something goes wrong, if you watch any kind of sporting event, somebody's going to get blamed for losing. Somebody's going to come up short. Some coach is going to make a bad decision. Some official is going to blow a call. There's always going to be some human, and there's going to be like a little bit of celebration for the hero, for the winner. But it's really going to be about, hey, you fucking loser. Look at how you lose, you loser. There's always going to be a scapegoat. There's, this guy, Bill Buckner, who the ball went between his legs for the Red Sox. Like, he had to move out of Boston, and he had been a great player for them for years, got death threats, family, like he had to move out. Like, he was going to live there the rest of his life. He'd play there, and, was first baseman for the Red Sox. And you can watch the play, he missed a routine ground ball. And the fucking Red Sox fans, man. And so there's always that, blaming human beings for something that is, there's a script here. And there's, like, either there's a plan. If there's God, there's a plan. And so that's what I'm saying about this. Like, there's nothing stressful about the circumstance other than our inability to adapt to the changes that we're all going to have to endure as there's systemic collapse and the rest of these things, right? Like, that's what we're dealing with. And so all these clowns, all these people talking, and, there's no stopping what's going to happen. There's a time Master Chargy came to America, and he said, basically, it was in the 80s, that, the doomsday can't be reversed. Now, you don't know exactly how he worded it. But, it was a way of saying, and I think maybe from the Whispers of the Brighter World messages or something, I don't know where he was getting this information. But it came out that nuclear war was supposed to happen in the 70s. And then the 80s, there's supposed to be nuclear war under Reagan. There was going to be these, when Russia was collapsing. And Russia decided not to do nuclear war, but there was windows of, I talked about early exits where you might have a, way to die before, like you can leave early. When I fell off the zip line. And your soul makes a choice, like, well, there's points where you can just die and, like, leave. whatever. But there was a way that there was a plan was in place that the nuclear war had already happened. And people talk about alternative timelines. I don't really believe in that shit, but whatever. Choice points. And it got delayed. But there was going to be no more delays because it was clear that human beings weren't going to do what needed to be done to lessen what's going to happen. Like there could have been choices made to alleviate some of the suffering, some of the whatever. But we're rushing headlong into it. Like as far as I know about it and what it looks like and the idiocracy and all these things that are unfolding in front of us. So like it's arrogant to pray to God and say, yeah, this is wrong, God, you made a mistake. Like, why is this happening? Because there's either a plan in God, there's a consciousness, and there's an overall, intelligent design type of situation. Christians are big on praying for things, and yet they're the ones pushing this idea of intelligent design, right? And so, it's either a plan or not. And so it's our ability to accept it. And then do what we're supposed to do. Like, maybe we can do something. So in terms of my health, when I was eating, I decided to eat when my heart was, it was mildly, it wasn't racing, but it was an irregular heartbeat. And when I swallowed some food, I felt it go down my esophagus right by my heart, and my heart had been calm for a little bit. And then it started to go. Like the stimulation of the food passing by made my heart go again. And I realized that when I stand up, because my stomach isn't really bloated when I stand up, or not nearly as bad, I've never had this. It never started when I stood up. And whenever I sit down or lay down and try to meditate and do something to calm myself down, which is better because when you sit down, your heart rate goes down, right? Because you're not putting as much pressure. I have to get up. And when I get up and walk around, it feels better. My heart rate goes down a little bit. And so it's sitting down, which would also mean pressure. And, I looked at what this person said, whatever the condition's called. I have it right here. Gastrocardiac syndrome. There was a list of things, and some of it was talking about, eating a full meal and then sitting down, and and the way that our couch is, postural changes, sitting upright and eating, and avoiding bending forward immediately. And I was also thinking about how I wonder if sitting down and eating isn't the way we're designed to eat, because I feel like when I stand up, the food goes down better. Like if you're sitting down, it's hard for it to, especially if your stomach's sort of folded over and you're bent by your stomach. People eat laying down, which is like crazy. But, given the problems I've had, which are not nearly as bad now, like it seems to have gotten better. But I've had problems with, acid reflux in my throat. And sometimes, I'd had trouble swallowing food. And I realized that when, and then also there's times where I feel like my food gets stuck. There's that sort of like a sphincter type of muscle that's right by your stomach that holds your stomach acid in. It has to open up for the food to go down. And sometimes the food can get caught right there somewhere down the base of it or whatever. So, I've been thinking about maybe standing up when I eat and to see if that's better. It doesn't, people want to relax and eat their food, but, when I swallow my pills, my supplements. So anyways, I've realized a lot of things about my stomach being a part of this. In the last, I've been aware of it forever, and then on the last, few days, and then this person sent me this condition with some of these things. So I feel fairly confident that I'm working on that. I got these really great probiotics, I think, that are really, top line kind of thing, like some private company, and I'm taking those, and we'll see if that helps. But, I've been eating less and trying not to get full, eating less, especially at night. And most of my palpitations came at night after dinner, like just, irregular heartbeats. And I didn't have any yesterday and none this morning. So, whatever the thing is, if I have to be more disciplined in these things and, if I can be preventative, then, that's great. And also God's will. And so, like, there's a combination of knowing what your work is, in the Sajmark system. Master Charji would always say, you do the work, and the work is yours, and the results are God's. So you do what you're supposed to do. You fulfill your obligations. You be aware of your role, what your soul wants you to do. And then it's in God's hands. And that's like with everything. And so, I mean, I don't want to, if I pray to God and say, and my meditations are getting better, and I feel like there's been some spiritual development. Like I feel cleaner, and I feel some of my voiceovers are, my voiceovers have gone to another level. Some of my content here, and so how am I going to say you made a mistake and take this thing away when I'm benefiting from it, right? So it's like a whole thing. But it sucks when it happens. I mean, it's just there's just like with the migraines, but like I've always felt like there's going to be something. Like I have good physical health. Like I've never gotten cancer, and the sickest I've ever been is mono when I was a kid, and COVID. Like so I mean, COVID was bad, but it was and it's hurt me post COVID, and that sucked. And I was one of the people that got it early on, and I got 3 doses, so I'm a little bit more fucked than other people. Like it was bad for me. But not having cancer, and up until now, I haven't had any heart issues, and I would think this is more of a vagus nerve electrical system issue more than it is a heart issue, and So, anyways, so that's my update, and I'll talk about this more as we see how this stuff works. But like my heart hasn't skipped a beat now in almost 24 hours. And so, like, I feel just maybe mentally more relaxed about it, and stress is a part of it, and I don't, hopefully I can, this will parlay into something better as time moves on. Somebody wrote this comment: I've done the transmission Pranhuiti experiment twice this week and working on a routine. Well, the gratefulness meditation, the Sajmark system is a practice, and somebody wrote something. I think I deleted the comment because I think maybe I didn't delete the comment, but I took a screenshot of it and I deleted the screenshot. Maybe I'll go back and look at that in a second here. But it's a discipline, and it's a practice, and it's supposed to be done in a certain way. And I've done my best to, in the Gratefulness Meditation channel, explain all of that. It isn't something where you can use it on your terms. Like it's supposed to be done in a certain way for results, and it's also being disciplined, and like it's a prescription. Oftentimes New Age people, and I'm not saying this person is that, I'm just explaining this. Oftentimes New Age people think they can take little bits of stuff from here and there and do it. The experiment is whether you can feel the Pranhuiti or not. And if that's the case, then, and you want to pursue it, then you go to the Gratefulness Meditation. There's 3 introductory sittings, which tells you everything you need to know about that. And, all those things. Like, you have to be introduced, and it's a whole process. There's a mission prayer, and it tells you all those things. Let me scroll through this thing if I find that comment. Okay, so the comment, I took down that video because I've remade the video and it's unlisted because, the techniques didn't work as well as I thought they would. I wanted to preface that in the video. So I have another video going up on Apocalypse Now. But I deleted the old video. And so I think there was a comment there that somebody was doing the Gratefulness Meditation. I think they said something where I heard that, it doesn't matter. I think they were doing it in the wrong way. So for those people who are interested, you go to the Gratefulness Meditation channel, and there's an introductory video and explains everything about the system. And I've added some playlists since then, but it's pretty much talks about all the things that are offered there. And there are a variety of playlists, and you start with the one that says introductory sittings, and you take 3 sittings in 3 days. And then there's an individual sitting given every Tuesday. There's a Friday sitting that's universal at 9 p.m. wherever you are for a half hour that does the cleaning and transmission. And then we all meditate at our convenience on Sunday, together but not together. It's like a group meditation where we do it all, with the idea that we're meditating together as a part of a, group, even though I don't put any videos up for that or any of these things. And all this stuff is explained, and it explains the practice. It has to be done the way it's a discipline. And, it's fine if you don't want to do it, but if you want to do it, you have to do it the right way. And it's, you have to trust in that the system works. And like one way you tell is by doing the transmission, like I said. So there's somebody who keeps on writing ban everybody. So, all of us who do the Sajmark practice, it teaches you by doing it. And then initially, Babaji, he would make these preceptors, and he'd do this deep spiritual work, do deep cleaning on them, and then he would charge these spiritual points so the transmission could come out of people, the Pranhuiti, this divine energy, the utilization of the divine energy for the transformation of man. And he wouldn't tell them anything. He just figured they would figure it out when they closed their eyes, and they would teach themselves. And it didn't fucking work because people were, they needed instruction. But, the meditations are supposed to teach you. You meditate, you learn to meditate by meditating. It's a practice. You're practicing connecting to God. It's a system where you refine your way of doing it. And the people who do it well, they're learning more and more every time they meditate, every time they, every day they're learning more. And it's like a journey where you're learning better and better how to do this. And so that's why it's important that that you do it the way it's supposed to be done. And you don't add other things that would interfere with it, other energy systems, other things. There's rules about it, like don't do Reiki and some of these other things because it interfered with the system. The system is simple, and it's a complete system. There needs to be nothing else, for people who are interested. And you don't have to do it. Like, it's totally your choice, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it the way that it's said. And it's, I've made all these videos to explain all this. I find the information fascinating and, like second to none in terms of just the idea of samskaras and the rest of these things. So anyways, I'll end this voiceover here, and I'll see if there's anything more to put in this video. I got to do some other things here. Okay, so often when I am a little bit sleepy sometime in the middle of the afternoon, I will be editing my videos, and I'll get really tired and take a nap. And sometimes if I don't edit a video, I'll just scroll through something like Facebook. I used to watch like cable TV, and there would be like, just, I wouldn't focus on anything. I'd just be scrolling through the channels. And so, like half asleep. And for whatever reason, I scroll through Instagram, which I never do because the pictures are too big. It's just visually difficult for me to do. Like, I just don't look at my Instagram feed. But I noticed that they were recommending a video from Erica J. Cunt here.
10 to 15 years from now, when my children will look back on this season of life that us three are going through, and they won't remember it fully because they're so young. But
what the fuck are you talking about? It's so fucking weird. Like, you have no idea what your kids are going to be like, but they're not going to be anything like you're saying here.
they will see everything. They will see how this world talked about their father, their mother, even themselves. They will be able to read every headline, every accusation.
The victim consciousness is strong in this one, right? I mean, just so bad. Like, you know, that's not what your kids are going to do. First of all, you're assuming your kids aren't going to know that you're a lying, manipulative victim consciousness cunt, right? I'm sure your kids aren't going to be digging you because you're just so weird and, you know, whatever this is. I mean, even if she has kids, but, you know, they're not going to remember any of this stuff about their dad. Like, if you make their dad some kind of, like, Messiah, like some kind of, like, he was Jesus, like, which she isn't going to do because she hated him because she whacked him. Like, you know, like, she's probably got men coming in and out of her house all the time. And by a house, I mean. But she's, you know, just deplorable. But her kids aren't going to go back and read all the headlines about her dad and all the things. You know, they're going to be like, probably just hating her and like over the whole Charlie Kirk thing, like TPUS gay. They might even be liberals. You know, they're going to not, you know, they'll rebel like American kids, and especially her kids. But she makes it sound like, you know, their whole life is over. Like, this is the most important thing in their life. Now, the one girl I think is like 3 or 4. And the other kid's like 1 or 2. So she's talking about these teenage girls, or what, you know, teenagers, and they're not going to want to go through and read all these headlines about how people were shitting all over her mom. Like they're gonna love her and respect her as teenagers.
every lie. And my prayer is their focus isn't on all that noise, but rather on how their mother showed up and how she handled it.
You're so narcissistic. Like your kids have no chance of ever loving you.
There will be a day.
I mean, it's so bad. I mean, that's what you're saying, right? Like, you know, how your mother showed up and in fact, she hasn't showed up. She does something and something happens and she hides away. Like she's been known to run away from the controversy and all of it. And they're going to find all the stuff about like what they might be interested in. What do you think's the thing that they're most going to be interested in? How their mother was so awesome and showed up and did such an amazing job with all these mean haters that didn't realize how great she was? Or that there's all this information that her mother was involved in some sort of conspiracy to kill their father. Which do you think is going to pop for them when they're teenagers? Just so fucking weird. Let's see what else she has here. Erica J. Kirk. This is the video that they recommended. And this, doing it in front of a camera. She's already so fake. She's at the WWE thing, and that how great that was. And there's just all these pictures with her and Charlie, these fake posed pictures, every one of them knowing that there's a camera on them. Her and her fake fucking smile, big fucking Erica. All these things, just there they are on the wedding day.
I want to show you some pictures of Mommy and Daddy, and I want to tell you a story.
So once upon a time, there was a little girl named Mama and Dada, and they loved each other very much. Mommy and Daddy wanted to have a family together. Gigi and her baby brother, they were Mama and Daddy's more.
The kids.
Now look at this one.
The kid's just as annoying as the mom.
Isn't he so sweet? How amazing Daddy is.
I love you so much, Daddy. I miss you, Dada.
I love you.
I love you too, babe.
The fuck is this shit bullshit? Oh my god, just terrific. Could you be any more fake?
Seems to me that nothing will ever be enough for the evil in this world.
I remember this fucking weird thing she did. Nothing will ever be enough for the evil in this world. We can't pacify evil. We can't satisfy the evil.
Our country has become unrecognizable. These people have perverted the truth to the point.
Okay, so big development here. They finally got a fucking thing where I can control the volume on Instagram. Instagram videos were really loud, and like I have to fucking remember to change the volume when I'm rendering them from ScreenFlow. If I don't do that, I gotta fucking edit the shit out of them. Pain in the fucking ass. Now, why couldn't they do this like so many years ago?
That they motivated the murder of my husband. They have continuously tried to assassinate the president.
Continuously. Because of evil.
And anyone who stands in their way is labeled hateful, racist, fascist, and every other trigger word that...
Cunt. They say cunt a lot. Evil uses the word cunt a lot.
is grossly dishonest. We want the best for our country. They don't.
They don't. They want our country to fail. They're just miserable people who want to suffer. They want our country to fail miserably, so they're miserable. They want to pay $20 a gallon for gasoline. They want to be in poverty. They're evil. They just want to suffer because evil people are known to want to suffer.
This is why Charlie started Turning Point USA in the first place. He didn't trust the radicalized liberal teachers. And this past Saturday, it was a school teacher, of all people, a school teacher, that attempted to change our history for the worst with bullets. And
boom. Remember that this was that fake assassination attempt that nobody talks about? That the guy ran through that thing with Trump because he didn't want to do the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He didn't want to get ragged on. and so they ran through and wrecked that fucking thing. Remember that? Like it's a non-event now. Like it's fucking insignificant
Everyone is asking
because it's fake.
why I even went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And it
I don't know. It's because of your content.
was because many of the journalists in that room have attempted to dehumanize me. And I wanted to meet some of them face to face, quite frankly. Why have a conversation about me when you can have a conversation with me?
No way. I mean, what journalists? They don't care about you. Name one journalist that's reported on Erica Kirk in the last year. Like it's the internet. Like it's not journalists. It's fucking social media. I've never seen her talked about on anything other than Fox News, and they talk about her positively. Nobody's ragging on her. That the liberal media doesn't give a shit about Erica Kirk. I've never seen CNN or MSNBC. In fact, I searched. I already did this. I searched them, and all the videos they put up on YouTube, and they didn't have anything about Erica Kirk except right after Charlie Kirk was dead. In fact, they moved on from the Charlie Kirk story. They pretty much ignored this. It's Candace Owens and the rest of these people. All right, so that's Erica J. Cunt. Okay, so this is the thing that made Ben Shapiro ghoulgasm.
We do want to bring you an update right now to some breaking news that we brought to you moments ago as Barack Ravid posting this saying senior American official U.S. military attacked Iranian targets in the Strait of Hormuz area. And Reuters is confirming what Barack Ravid with Axios is reporting, saying the U.S. military conducted strikes against Iran on Friday, Central Command said in a statement, adding that U.S. aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites after Tehran's attack on a commercial ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Fox's Jennifer Griffin also confirming this, reporting senior U.S. official tells me U.S. military has begun striking Iranian targets in response to Iranian breach of MOU and ceasefire and attacks on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command posting a statement saying the U.S. Central Command forces conducted strikes.
All right, so, like I said, this war ain't fucking going to end. Israel won't let it because they won't get out of Lebanon. And Trump's too much of a pussy to, whatever's happened with him and Israel. And, because something's got to happen. Like some destructive shit has got to happen. The system has to come down. Let me switch over to a voiceover here. When I look at what's going on with this thing I call the show, it's like a show that's gone on far too long. I've been covering this stuff. It's different when you do what I do for a living because, it's, the rest of you guys just take breaks from the bullshit, like it's just, you don't care about it or, you do whatever you do. You don't think about it. I think about these things, only lightly, not with much, seriousness, but I contemplate or, I look into these things on a daily basis. And there's so many different things I've covered. Like, I forgot all about that bullshit fake assassination attempt. And that wasn't even that, where the guy ran through the fucking hotel and at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I pretty much forgot about Erica Kirk talking about it, right? Like I remember covering I remember seeing her and mocking her for these things she said. Like I could go back and I probably said a similar thing then, where she's saying that the media, all these media, they're writing shitty things about her. It's only the Daily Mail, remember? Like there's no other mainstream news about Erica Kirk because they don't think about her. This is a private war that's TPUS gay against TPUS gay crime, right? It's MAGA on MAGA crime. It's all the old disgruntled, MAGA people who are got some level of truther stuff. But, when I look at this stuff on a daily basis, and, I've been doing this on, 14 years, since I'm not to 14 years. This channel's been around since 2007, and I started making this kind of content as a full-time job in 2014. And so, that's 12 years of doing this. And all this shit that I've discovered or see other people have sent me that's been discovered by other truthers or shit that's out there, all the fucking symbolism and Illuminati bullshit in videos and and movies and TV shows, all the secret bullshit, all the degradation, how bad things have gotten. You know, J.D. Vance saying that if Nixon's Watergate would be like a 12-hour story, which is true because how degraded it is, right? And, you know, like, wrap it up already, right? Let's wrap this fucking thing up already. Like, it just goes on. Like, you know, things that should have destroyed America or the world or the economy or any fucking number of these things, just doesn't happen. Like, it keeps on going. It just gets lower and lower and creepier and more fucking stupid and more dumb fuck and, you know, idiocracy. And it just keeps on going more and more in that direction. Like, it's like, you know, you've been diagnosed with, you know, somebody wrote me a comment, one of my first comments that I mocked. They said, I hope you get cancer and AIDS. And so I said, you know, so you want me to go into the doctor's office? And the doctor goes, well, I've got bad news. I got bad news. What's the bad news? Well, you got cancer. What's the other bad news? You got AIDS. And, you know, like, it's just one diagnosis after another, and this fucking thing won't end. This show, it's gone on for, like, you know, 20 seasons or 100 seasons, and it's just like nobody's watching it anymore. And they just keep on, you know, cranking out new fucking stuff, and it's enough already, right? Like, this show has jumped the shark years ago. I mean, it's time to just wrap it up. And fucking, you know, like, it's just, there's no interest in it. Like, if there's no consequences and there's no, like, you know, if something doesn't die when it's been terminal forever, like, at some point, something's got to fucking happen. Like, just, whether it's the war with Iran or, you know, escalating things or fucking some meteor hitting the fucking planet, just fucking something, right? Like, it's just, yeah, we get it already. Like, there's no, it never gets better. Like, it never gets more uplifting. There's never a new character that's inspirational. You know, and I now think about everybody. That's why I call people pieces of shit and dumb fucks. Well, the piece of shit thing is, you know, if you're not able to realize as a person telling other people things, or you won't say it because, you know, it's counterproductive to you, or your handlers won't let you say it, that the system's fucked. And it's not good for you. Like, it's bad for you. Like, everything's bad about it. It's making people worse. And I said this early on, years ago when I first started this YouTube channel. You know, a system is to be judged on its, you know, its product, which is the people. You know, is the system that we have now helping people to be better? Helping them to be better people with better character, stronger, you know, selfless? I mean, just, you know, the things that you would list for a good person. People who care about other people, people are, you know, who focus on God, people who believe in service, and, you know, just people that are good people. Or are people getting worse? Well, people are getting worse. Each generation is getting worse. Technology is making people weaker and more entitled. I mean, the physical weaknesses are there. Mental weaknesses, people are getting stupider across the board. Like, in what way are people better now than they were before? We have better things. We have better technology, or more advanced. But the technology is hurting all of us. We see the effects of cell phones. We see the effects of years and years of internet and years of, you know, all the social media. Like, it just gets worse, right? It's making people worse. And so if your system's making people worse and it's taking them away from what makes them natural human beings and taking them away from God and their soul's purpose, then the system has to go, right? The system should just disappear. And none of these people will say that. It's a systemic problem. It's a people problem. You know, these are the two things. Like, all the other shit, you know, is just side effects and symptoms of shitty people with a shitty system, demonic system and demonic people, you know, ego-driven people, hedonistic people who are just selfless and selfish in every possible way. And so this is why the system sucks, because the people suck, and why the people suck is the system sucks, right? And so, you know, one of them has to go, and maybe both, right? So, but something has to be done. I mean, not that I'm going to do it or anybody should be thinking about doing something, because it's got to collapse of its own depravity. And it's like, are we still doing this? Like, it's so fucking, you know, it's just boring at this point. You know, my wife and I rewatched the movie Good Luck, Have Fun, and Don't Die. And it's on Hulu. And I don't want to get into too much of it, but it's the quintessential movie done in a light way. And there's some just great funny scenes. I knew when I watched it with my wife, it would be more enjoyable because she really laughs and, just she enjoys things more than I do. And I wanted to see the thing again, and I just watched it like a week ago. And I noticed things, sometimes when you know how the thing's going to end, you notice things all along. And, really good movie. I mean, like one of these movies, I've seen another movie we really liked that I watched, and then we watched together. Heretic, that was a great movie. Just, some of these things. Where it's just, like there's a kind of a master class the way they put it together. But it's the quintessential movie about internet and AI and just, the direction people are going. And, of course it's fucking doomed, right? You see it's doomed. All these technological movies are about technological development. People are just getting weaker and shittier, right? Like that's, like it's projected into the future because that's the path that we're on, right? And so all the people that aren't saying what I'm saying in one capacity or another, they're worthless pieces of shit because they're telling you you have hope. Like this is in terms of the system, you always have hope. You always have connection, be able to connect to God. There's always a pathway for you to become a better person and, evolve spiritually. But in terms of the system, it's cooked. Like there's nothing here. And, like everyone's got to figure out what does that mean to you? Based in your age, based in, a lot of people are just there's going to be massive die-off. So it's not for everybody. Like lots of people, it doesn't matter because it isn't going to be for them. It's going to have nothing to do with them, right? I was watching this, what's the show? Alone. I watch these Alone shows, and I'm on season 3. These people go out and they're dropped in a remote location. It's my favorite. I like these survival shows. It's my favorite one because these people build incredible shit, with limited tools. And they build little homes and they live out there for like 70 days. And there's this one guy, he's kind of annoying, kind of unlikable, a little bit creepy. But he built himself a nice house, right? And he was catching fish and he built a drying rack, where you can, like what they do with beef jerky. But he was catching, they had trout. So they're catching trout. They're in Patagonia. And he puts it on the dried rack and he has 32 or 33 halves of fish, 31, something like that. 33 would be the number that everyone would freak out about, but that's not what I'm talking about here. He had all these halves of fish, and he was eating a fish every 3 days, half a fish. And he was starving. And he got so he couldn't string his bow. And he was, like, he looked like he was going to die. And he had like fucking 30 fish, halves of trout. And he was close to the end. He probably would have won or could have won. The other people were already, they all had to be medically tapped out, the last 3 people. The last guy was about to be medically tapped out. But this guy, they came in and they said, fucking, you got to go. Like, you got to go. And he's like, no, but I got food. But I got food. And they had this blurb underneath that saying, when people are starving, they'll hoard food. And they'll start, just weird shit. And like, this is somebody with skills and he's living out on his own in Patagonia for fucking 70 days and shit. And he gets into some weird mental cycle. Certainly being alone didn't help. But he could have eaten all those fish and he would have probably won. Like he could have saved some of them. He could have eaten one like 2 days on and take a day off, or just eating the food and staying, because you're going to lose weight no matter what in these shows. And they showed a picture of him before and after, like when they had the after party. But he's sitting there like going, but I have food. But I have food. And like they all lose their shit, like the people, because they're alone and they start getting crazy. But he's like, and then they're like, he goes, I can't stay. And they're like, no, you're going straight to the fucking hospital. Like, we got to bring you to the fucking hospital. Like, you're almost dead. Like, you're just, you're like, it's really bad. And he's just lost his shit. And he was, Master Chargy used to talk about how they find frozen squirrels that are inches away from digging through this frozen squirrels in snow. And they're digging through trying to get some nuts. Like there's a bunch of nuts and they're just, inches away from from digging out the. But like, there's all these things that people have inside of them, abilities and a wealth of spiritual potential, and people are just miserable and lonely and are just missing the boat. Like just miss it, right? Like it's there, you have what you need, but people just can't access it because the systemic part is part of the problem. But people are just so fucked up. But the more I watch what's going on, I'm like, yeah, I would have to see the system collapse for me to even believe it's possible. Like, why isn't it collapsed already? Like, I mean, it should have collapsed years ago. Like, it's just being, propped up in some way. We have a debt-based system. We have revolving debt in the national debt and our collective debt, and just America alone, it's $100 trillion. And, I mean, there's no way to pay that off, and everything's insolvent. The banks are insolvent. The economy's insolvent. People are just fucking worthless and just, the worst. And getting worse, generation by generation, day by day. And like it just keeps on chugging along, a dysfunctional system. When you think about a perpetual motion machine, they've tried to build these machines. The sun, a star is an example of this, where there's a minimum input and the output exceeds the input. There's energy loss. When your car, with the gas and an electric car and electricity in your house and, getting electricity from a turbine, the amount of energy it takes to create the energy or create the movement of the car, there's energy loss, right? You can't get the energy to go back into your car. Like, let's say you have they have these with the electric cars. They have braking systems that put electricity back in your car. And also, the wheels are spinning and could be a turbine. But you're always going to have energy loss. Like the input, the fuel you're putting into it, the energy you're putting into moving it is always going to be more than the output. So a perpetual motion machine was where you'd get a little bit of input, which is the universe, as an example. There's a thought that created the universe, a mere thought, and it's, ever expanding materially and spiritually. Like there's, God's universe is minimum input. Master Chargy would often talk about how, in terms of like looking inside and finding the wealth that you have inside of you, you see these seeds, some big trees, some giant redwood, wherever it is, oak trees, and you have these small little seeds, and you cut open the seed and there's nothing there. It's like empty. It's like a little shell, empty shell, barely anything in there. And from that little seed comes this giant, trees, a little sperm, a little egg, microscopic, can't even see them with your naked eye, and a person comes out of that, right? Like you have these little things, an egg, and then, a small little egg, and there's a little dot on the egg, right? The yolk is the food for the chicken. So there's a little dot that's on the yolk when you see a fertilized egg, and that's the baby chicken. It's nothing. And it starts to feed off the yolk, and in 24 days, 23 days, whatever it is, it becomes a chicken. It hatches chicken, comes out of the egg, and then it grows from there, like a small little chick grows into a big chicken. All these things. We see it, like these little tiny things that become something. Minimum input, maximum output, right? Very little to start, almost nothing to start off with, and then something microscopic because a human being, right? All these things, but within our system, everything's a loss. Everything is it's a disappointment. It's whatever the expectations are for things. Everything underperforms. Like it's dragging. Our system is dragging. It's so resource heavy. So much energy is put into keeping a dysfunctional system going. It just won't fucking die, right? Anyways, I'm going to go for a little walk with my dogs, and I think there's more I wanted to say. I don't know if I forgot something or not, but, how important it is. It's like just me doing these videos time and time again. Like everything just seems surreal, and like it's just like, is this even fucking real? Like real life has become like a video game, like a, AI, shitty AI slop, right? Anyhow, I'll come back and wrap this up in a second. Okay, so I went out, did all the work I had to do outside, a bunch of stuff today. Good day. I would say about and I keep on referring it to a heart situation, but I've known all along that my gut and the COVID stuff is what's causing. It's a nervous system issue and a vagus nerve issue and a gut issue. That is, the symptom is in my heart, and of course when the symptom's in your heart, that's what you're going to focus on. When the side effects are in your heart, the heart's like pretty fucking important. And so you immediately focus on it. But my heart feels good like the next day, 2 days after. I mean, it doesn't feel bad at all. It just glitches out. And then I'm able to go do work. I mean, in the beginning, I was a little bit more, I mean, when it when it would beat really hard, I mean, that's a problem because it's, I mean, it's revving up to 250 beats. That's pretty fucked, right? It's just exhausting. I mean, exhausting on the whole body. And it's, of course, traumatizing, especially the first time it happens. But, the other times it doesn't get up that, it's just beating, it's not beating properly. But the next day it's like, it's over. 2 or 3 days, it's like it's never happened. And so I'm out there doing work or whatever. The other thing is that there are some people who watch my videos who, I think enjoy the content, maybe feel some kind of positive feelings towards me, are concerned. And for the life of me, they can't, figure out why I won't get medically tested. Of course I have. I had a variety of blood tests that were related to the heart. And I sort of explained this in my last video, but I can understand why people are freaked out. But like I said, I don't trust allopathic medicine. And allopathic medicine, for the most part, because there's been positive things, I go on antibiotics when I need to, and there's certain things where I'm just not getting better. The issue is, like, I don't know what else I would do. I've been taking supplements, beet powder, dietary things that are good for the heart. I was exercising in various ways. I mean, all kinds of things that I'm doing. Breathing exercise, nitric oxide boosting things. My heart was functioning pretty well before this whole thing happened with the glitching out. I felt like I had, I saw this video where this person was saying that, your heart gets old because you're not getting it, getting your heartbeat up. And that if you get, do exercise to, like, I think it was 7 minutes a day, and then maybe expand it to double that. And if you do that as an older person, your heart after a couple of months will become like a young heart again. Like it'll it'll repurpose itself. It'll, it's like you're getting it back in shape. And I did it for like a year or something. I've been like up and down with my ability to exercise because all this shit has happened. But, so hopefully I'll get back to that. I think I got to handle also the idea. It's this one thing which, fits my circumstance perfectly. The whole, let me find it here. The gastrocardiac thing, the gastrocardiac syndrome and Reinhold syndrome. I can now approach it with this idea of, like, let's treat that and see if that works. If that works, then, then there won't be any more issues and I can be relieved of the, whatever it is. But, I don't know what's available to me in terms of, like, treatments, like what I would do. I don't think there's very many allopathic things. I don't want to go on allopathic medication, in terms of these. I don't trust the diagnoses, so all those, it would just be a fucking stress out thing for me, right? But anyway, it's like I can understand why people are, freaked out because they think there might be something seriously wrong and I'm missing out on it. If I don't find out, it'll, be catastrophic or something bad. And that's, that's the risk you run. But you run a risk when you go and interact with allopathic medicine. Medical errors kill something like 250,000 people every year. So I just looked it up and it says 250,000 to 795,000. So almost 1 million people. And, those numbers are going to be, there's some people who are dying from medical malpractice or errors that won't be diagnosed with that, right? They're, medicated they were put on medication they didn't need. And so, it might take 10 years for them to die. So it isn't like, there was some kind of problem with surgery. But really, millions of people are dying or suffering, tens of millions of people from medical malpractice and these things, from just allopathic medicine. So, that is whatever it is. All right, so let me go look at the comments. So I just got this comment. While Paul describes his parents as incompetent, but betting on your child dying is some real scumbag stuff. Thankfully, they lost that bet. I wonder how much they paid, how over long, and if they did anything to affect the outcome. I watched a lot of true crime, LOL. Well, no, I was out of the house. Like, this was, I think I must have been in college. I'm not sure when it was. But, I don't know. Even how it came into my dad's mind, right? Like, my mom found these papers, and I looked into it, and I'm not a business person, and I'm not a form reader, and I just, my brother had a theory because my dad was a guidance counselor, that me and him didn't like to fill out forms because my dad was kind of a bureaucrat, but my dad had dyslexia too, and he was, anyways. But he wasn't a go-getter, and I don't even know how like that even crossed his mind to do that, right? But it's a pretty fucked up thing. My dad lost his shit. He became really racist and anti-Semite. He was anti-Semitic. His best friends, back when he went to college, people looked down on Italians, Irish, and Jews, and people like that. So there was a different level of racism. These immigrants that were coming in, right? The way that people look at immigrants today. And my dad went to Rutgers, and he had two friends who were Jewish guys, lifelong friends, Bob Satter and Hal Wurtenberg, who Bob Satter became a judge. Hal Wurtenberg was a successful businessman. And my dad was at least as smart as they were, and he ended up being a guidance counselor, right? So he just underachieved. I don't remember Hal Wurtenberg. Bob Satter and his family seemed nice to me. We went over to their house once with my mom, and we celebrated, I think, some kind of Passover or something with them. I don't know what it was. And then another time, my dad and I went over there for dinner when my mom was in Florida. And my dad was being a dick to Bob Satter. And so much we had like an argument about it. But my dad was just a piece of shit, But my first conscious memory was I was like 4 years old. I remember what I was wearing. I had this red pair of shorts and a red shirt, like a little. I remember I had like a button on the side of it. I mean, I have an adult memory of this moment. Like it was like I came online when my dad did this. So we were walking around Elizabeth Park Pond. There was a pond, there's Elizabeth Park in Hartford, and we were in West Hartford on the border of Hartford. There was some nice, in the part of the city where they have these big old houses, like big old mansions where the governor's mansion is. And that was the part of Hartford where, close to Elizabeth Park, and then, later on it became kind of a hangout for like minor Connecticut, Hartford gang type people. But they had these big rose gardens, and they had this pond. In the middle of the pond, there was an island, and we used to go ice skating. And I remember going ice skating, and my feet hurt. My feet really hurt. And then they just stopped hurting. So I'm like, oh, this is great. And I went home, and my toes were so cold, they went numb. And when they started to warm up, it was so fucking painful. I was like 8 or 9 years old. We used to skate out to this island that we could never get to. I remember my brother and I were walking around this pond, and there was a little turtle, and my brother reached out and grabbed it and, showed it to me and then let it go. And I see these little turtles all the time. So I have these memories. And I was 4 years old, and I was looking at a fucking lily pad. We have this big little, we have this little pond outside. We have a huge lily pad, lotus, whatever it is they call those flowers. We had 5 or 6 of them this year. And, but anyways, there's a lily pad. It wasn't opened. And I said to my dad, there's a frog. And my dad's like, no, that's just a lily pad. I'm like, that's a frog. And I'm arguing like a little kid, right? And my dad goes, well, grab it, right? So I he's holding my hand, and I'm reaching out, and I go to grab the thing, and he let go. And like I fall into the fucking pond. And like I woke up like I had this moment of like adult level, consciousness. And I was like looking at my dad, he was laughing, and I'm like, oh, you're fucked. You got, there's a few things that happened where I realized that I was on my own. My mom once sent me to school with, I had these, lip sores that I would get. I don't know if I, was blowing my nose or just whatever. And my mom sent me to school with a big wad of fucking Neosporin underneath my nose, and it looked like boogers, and told me not to wipe it off. And I got to school, I'm like 8 years old. And, I was getting teased mercilessly for, having boogers on my, whatever. I don't think it bothered me that much, but I do remember there's one of my friends was there, and there was this kid, and his name was McCormick. I can't remember who he was. I just remember my friend McCormick was saying things to me. He must have been like more into it than the other kids. And one of my friends said, "Where's your knife and fork, McCormick?" Meaning that, he was obsessed with my booger and he should really want to eat it. And so, and it wasn't really, my Neosporin. But I remember after that, I was like, okay, you have to like you can't trust your parents. Like you just can't. Like my dad was kind of cruel and incompetent and just, pretty much a shit. I mean, kind of worthless. And I had like a couple good memories with him. Like I was into reading books. Like we had these museum books, the Museum of Natural History encyclopedias, and I really enjoyed going to the museum. And my dad and I went there. We went there once, and my parents left the fucking station wagon on the side of the road. I think we went to the Bronx Zoo, and we were going to stay in a hotel and then, go to the Bronx Zoo and the museum. So I mean, they were taking active interest in my, my interests, because I wanted to go to the zoo and I had all these books about it, and we went to the zoo and we came back and our car had been completely robbed, and people were standing around the car going, "What kind of asshole would leave his car filled with luggage on the street of New York?" And my dad had a history. There was a time before I was born, they drive from Connecticut over, it's 2.5 hours to New Jersey, and they had to go over these bridges, the Tappan Zee Bridge or the tunnel, to get to New Jersey. And my dad somehow, he had bad eyesight and he made poor decisions, and he was going the wrong way on a one-way street, and the cop was fucking pissed. But my mom said that my sisters were all dressed like they were like little girls, and they were dressed in Easter Day outfits with bonnets and shit. They were going to see my grandparents, and the cop saw the girls and like was just about to tell my dad what a piece of shit he was, but he held his tongue, right? And so one time we were on vacation, and my dad went the wrong way on a one-way street 3 times in a row. He kept on turning on one-way streets. It was one of those small towns, like in either Rhode Island or North Carolina or something, one of those like beach towns. And like people were beeping at him, and my mom's like, "Oh, Ralph," My dad's name was Ralph, my mom's name was Rita. And he kept on turning on the wrong way. And then when I was in college, he was, I think, towing a trailer. We were driving, he was moving. And he was taking advantage of, I was young and fit, and I was, good athlete, and I was going to help them move. And I said, I'm a good driver. Why don't you let me drive? And my dad's like, no, let me drive, because he's towing this trailer. And we were on this road in Florida. I was visiting them, or maybe when I was going this year. I think I was going to school there. I went to school for a year in Florida, college. And my dad was driving, and instead of there was the road that he wanted to go is cross over the oncoming traffic and take a right after that road. But he got confused, and he took a right onto the oncoming traffic of a busy ass road like Glades Road in Boca Raton, Florida, one of these big ass fucking double lane. Now I think the Glades Road is like now 4 lanes, but the traffic's like fucking crazy, and there's all these oncoming cars, and we're towing a fucking trailer. So he's pretty much a fucking boob. But we went to the Museum of Natural History, and my dad found a wallet. The second time we went, and he found a wallet, and he returned it in, and they couldn't believe he turned it in because it was New York City. It had money in it and shit. And they brought us to these secret exhibits, like all this stuff, like there was a whole bunch of shit. There was like a big thing that happened. It was like one of the few times I was proud of my dad. Otherwise, he was just a incompetent boob. But anyways, yeah, I'm kind of an asshole. I mean, I don't know what he was doing with the life insurance. Like, I was like, it was a bad time for me to, like, there was nothing left for me to be like, my dad was so pathetic at that time. And I mean, it was after he died, I guess, when I found that out. So, but he has been so pathetic for his last 10 or 15 years. Like, I didn't have any anger towards him. But it was like, kind of just, I mean, embarrassing, one, and two, it's just hard to watch somebody just fail at life and die pathetic and scared and just weak and just being a piece of shit. I mean, that's not good for anybody to see, whether it was my dad or not. Like, at that point, I didn't even think my parents were, like, related to me. Like, at some point, I just, like, they were my parents, and I have memories of a phase of my life when I lived with them, and memories of a phase of my life when we interacted occasionally. And that just, dissipated over time. And now that they're both dead, it's like, it's, I mean, yeah, they were kind of technically my parents. But, my family and I aren't, we don't connect, and I don't find it fun to be around them or whatever it is. And then I understand why people don't like me because, I mean, we have similarities. My brothers and my brother and my three sisters and, family or whatever it is, there's always things that you have in common, and I don't get along with them. So I don't think I would get along with another version of me, so that's why I don't get upset when people are like, I don't like you, when they're in the comments section. I'm like, yeah, all right, well, I understand. Like, I can understand that. But it's fucked up you got to tell me because I don't even know you exist, right? I'm not, like you're having a singular experience of listening to me, but I don't know who you are, what you're about, or whatever. And so there's no reason to tell me that. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely pointing for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.